One thing that I think is a good development that's happening recently is this movement of women who are considering themselves neo-traditionalist, or even, as I've heard one woman, Louise Perry, say, neo-prudes. So women who say that men and women actually have very different attitudes towards casual sex. The risks of casual sex are extremely asymmetrical for men and women, and not necessarily endorsing shame and terror, but that saying that casual sex is an unalloyed good is a mistake. And it's not just a mistake because of unintended pregnancies. It's a mistake because it often makes women feel bad because
Right.
it's not women's best, best reproductive strategy, best romantic strategy, best life strategy to have tons of casual sex, because it will often not make them feel happy. It makes men feel happy. And I've even heard of this idea that casual sex is, resurgence, or the incidence of hookup culture is actually a form of patriarchy because it's something that men want and that women think they want, but they've actually been fooled in some way. What would you say to those kinds of conjectures?
I mean, I am totally on board with that. I think one of the pernicious effects of, feminist ideology and of, gender sameness, well, feminism is sort of this hot mess of different propositions and contradictions, of course, but one is, there's one sexuality, and that sexuality is male. I mean, that is the proposition behind the hookup culture, behind these online dating sites, like I don't even know the names of them.
Tinder?
Um, the one where you swipe left and right,
That's
whatever.
Tinder.
Yes, yeah. That notion, which strikes me as just utterly preposterous. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't, women who are, we used to call them nymphomaniacs. I mean, that there aren't women, that's a nice 1950s term, who love to, have sex with a lot of different men. I think those women do exist. Do I think that they are the predominant, type? No, no, I do not think that at all. I think women are cautious, well, you're an evolutionary biologist, women are more cautious, more picky. They're that way for a reason. These are, on average, they enjoy sex in the context of emotional connection. They don't necessarily enjoy it without that emotional connection, whereas men uh, are very different in that respect. I mean, I have male friends who, have told me, and one in particular who I like a lot, who says, I would just screw anything. It really wouldn't matter.
Yeah.
Anything like 3 and above on 1 to 10. And I just looked at him like, okay, uh,
There was this
I
Portuguese
certainly never
bartender
felt that way.
at
Um,
my college who used to always say, "It doesn't matter when you're in the middle. It doesn't matter how attractive she is when you're in the middle,"
well,
which is
right.
a very crass way of saying it. Okay, so you have two daughters. I have a daughter. I'm curious. How did you educate your daughters, or what did you tell them about sex and marriage? And how did you, obviously your grandma and your daughters are, I don't know if they're married or divorced or whatever, but did you think that you had some influence on them, or do you think that they just inherited this caution and prudence from you?
My older daughter is married. My son's about to get married, and I know my younger daughter would love to get married. She's very much trying to find someone to marry. I was very, I didn't talk about it very much, but I was very, very candid about my views. I didn't hold back. This progressive parenting fashion of, well, don't tell them what you think, and don't tell them what you think is good or bad. Don't approve or disapprove because that will alienate them. I did never subscribe to that. My view was, I am going to give them the benefit of my wisdom and experience and my opinion. It's their life. If they want to screw it up, that's their prerogative. They don't have to do what I suggest, but I'm not going to hold back. So I said, marriage is really, really important. Having children is really important. My husband, who's a man of few words, once said, few are the women who could reach the end of their life childless without regret. That
Mm.
was his sole sentence about it. And it really just says it all, I think. Um, So these are really central and important things to a happy life. Male and female sexuality are different. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Don't get pregnant. God, do not have a child out of wedlock. I mean, my older daughter was telling my younger daughter this. She said,
Yeah.
I just want to tell you one thing. Don't get pregnant. They, so I was hearing my words come back to me. Um, and my son is very traditional, and he kind of knows what time it is and he gets it. So maybe I was a countercultural parent very much that way, because I had strong opinions and I didn't hesitate to express them. Now, what I didn't do is, well, I was lucky in that my kids are really sensible and really based and grounded, and they're great. Um, I don't know what I would have done if I'd had a child who kind of went off the deep end or whatever. I don't know. That's a real problem. Charles Murray says it's one thing to draw a line. That's relatively easy. But when they cross the line, to know what to do when people cross the line, that's hard.
Yeah, I think that the new parenting mantra is that you should show your children unconditional love, and showing somebody unconditional love goes so far as to not even tell them what conditions you would appreciate, what you might want them to do with their lives, and what you think are the strategies for success. So there seems to be this unruddered finding your identity, finding, experimentation that's happening right now, where parents won't even say, look, I think if you did something differently. But I know my parents would have been thrilled if I had married my first boyfriend. I would have been absolutely miserable with him. So, but
Yeah,
they didn't
sure. I
pressure me
mean,
to do that. Right.
well, this unconditional love thing is very tricky, right? That's just one of these protean phrases because it can mean a lot of different things. I mean, on some level, we do give our children unconditional love, but on the other hand, all we need to do is say, look, there is better and there is worse, and there are many ways to live a life. Too narrow a view, too tight a notion of what a worthwhile life is no good either. You have to be open to your children, taking many different paths, as long as they're constructive paths. That's all. I mean, I have relatives, I have a lot of relatives in the medical field, and one senior person who essentially communicated to his kids, there's only one worthwhile thing to do, and that's to be a doctor. Well, I was puzzled by this. It's like saying, well, we all have to be taking in each other's laundry. Why are we keeping each other alive for? What, I mean, just for the hell of it? Uh, no, there has to be other things in life that we keep people alive for. Health is in
Yeah.
service of other goals, other aspirations. So, when your child or children get older, you will realize that they are not a version of you, that they have different interests, different orientations. Uh, my youngest daughter is very interested in the dramatic arts. She was headed to being a director, a successful one in New York when COVID hit. This is something that never attracted me, that I was never the slightest bit interested in. And so you see your children manifest interests that you don't have. And that's part of the fascination of being a parent,
Yeah.
of how did that happen? That sort of thing.
I'm curious because a lot of women in your station are either childless or have one or two children. Why did you have three children? Did you intend to have three children? Tell me a little bit about how you planned your life around children and family, because now women are, freezing their eggs. They're most women who end up childless didn't intend to. They just didn't find a partner in time. There's
Right.
this, huge conversation in feminist circles about what to do. And it's very confusing, and I'm just curious what your advice would be.
Well, I think this is very, very difficult. I do feel bad for people who have trouble finding partners. I think this is a whole nother topic of why are there so many impediments to people getting together? And, I could talk for a while about that. And it's sad, but I would have probably had more. I would have had four. I got a very late start. My first child was
Mhm.
born when I was 37.
Yeah.
I was very, very lucky in being able to have two children in my 40s, which many people cannot do. And that was just, a stroke of luck that I was fertile for longer than the average woman. So I was very grateful for that. If I had gotten an earlier start, I probably would have had maybe four kids. My sister-in-law has four kids. My husband's family, they have a lot of kids. Um, I think because even though I was a very career oriented woman, I will confess that more than most, I really was, I had a very strong traditionalist streak. Maybe it's because I'm fundamentally conservative in the way I look at life. Maybe it's because I was raised in a pretty devout Jewish family, although there are lots of people raised in devout Jewish families who go completely off the deep end in the opposite direction, of course. So that's not very causally cogent. Um, but I just never doubted that it was really important as a woman, as a person, to have children, that was just so completely central to what it meant to be human. I just cannot imagine being a childless woman. It strikes me as just this horrible misfortune. It is such a vital, important part of the human experience. And I remember when each of my children was born, the pure elation of it, of having that newborn child, of hearing the first cry of your child, of going into the nursery and picking up your child in the quiet of the night. There's nothing like it. I'm getting kind of emotional about it, but I
Yeah.
can't imagine missing that.